Okay, so today we're talking over the college loan project. It's currently the year 2013, and we're going to assume a 6% growth rate in the tuition. So that if you looked at this formula here on my second line, you'd find it said times 1 plus 0.06. I'm using a $50,000 starting tuition, room, and board. This is an important part because a lot of you guys aren't going to understand this innately. The colleges oftentimes will say something like, our tuition is this much. Tuition is, let's say, $25,000. And you think, okay, so that's the price to go there. Unless you're going to live at home, you can't just do tuition. Most people do tuition and room and board. Board means food. Okay, so you're going to have to find the price for tuition, room, and board. Not including things like extra expenses for pizza. Do you really have that in the real world? Sure. If you're a kid and you go into college, you probably have some other expenses too, but we're just trying to figure out the cost for the college here, not the personal stuff you would bring. Like you got to pay for toothpaste, you got to pay for clothes, and you got to, there's a lot of expenses for living there, but we're not counting those. Just the tuition and the room cost and the board cost. And for St. Olaf, where I went, it's around 50. I'm not going to give you the exact number because I don't want to do anybody's whole project right now. But I'm going to be going through the whole project that you have to do this week. It's due by Friday. I'm going to do one right now, an example one. All right, so if you do what I just did, then I'm going to have to go to the second table settings and then go to the year 2013 as my starting spot on my table, 2013. I just screwed that up. I'm going to try again. 2013, 2013. All right, then everybody please put that into your calculator and get to the table. So if you were going to St. Olaf right now, then your costs would be around 50. Next year, 53. Year after that, 56. Year after that, 59. But you guys aren't going right now. You're freshmen. Specifically in this class, it's freshmen. Now, in some of the other classes, there's going to be sophomores and juniors in the class. You'll have to adjust the numbers for you. But if you're currently a freshman, then you're going to be going to school in about the year 2016. Okay? 2014, you'll start your sophomore year, right? 2015, your junior. 2016, you start your... Wait, or 2017 figures? Oh, that's right. You'll actually start your sophomore year this year, 2013. Sorry. Okay, so junior year, 2014. Senior year, 2015. College, 2016. Okay, so in 2016, you're going to start college. And by the way, that means you're the class of 2019 when it comes to college. You're going to be graduating from college in 2019. Usually they consider 4 years kind of like a standard 4-year degree. Some people go longer than that. A lot of times if people go to public schools, the average kid nowadays does graduate in 4 years, but only like 51% of them graduate in 4 years. Usually if you go like to the U of M or one of the public schools, a lot of times it takes 5 years to graduate. Because you can't get the classes that you want, or you change your mind on your major, that kind of stuff. So we're making a lot of assumptions here, but this would be your starting tuition then, given what I just said. 2016, right there. So let's say it was St. Olaf. You're going to be starting around $60,000 right there. All right, I would ask you to write those 4 numbers down for the project. You don't have to right now, but you'd write these 4 numbers down and add them up. By the last year, your senior year, you might have started at 63, but you're going to end around 70. That's the depressing part. It just keeps going up year after year after year. Way more, yes. St. Olaf right now is around 50. And when I went there, tuition, room, and board was 10. Yep. And I figured out that if tuition, room, and board had only gone up at the rate of inflation, St. Olaf should right now be about 22, 23. And it's gone up to 50. So it's gone up twice the rate of inflation. So, yeah, college costs have gone up a lot. Now, a lot of people would say, yeah, but you don't really pay that amount. Well, it depends. If your family has financial needs, sometimes you can get a better deal. They give you cheaper tuition. If your family doesn't, then you just pay the full price. Sometimes you can get college scholarships. A lot of the schools like St. Olaf don't offer scholarships for sports, but if they really want you for a sport, sometimes they work it out to get you a scholarship for academics. Academic scholarships at St. Olaf, for instance, you might get $15,000 in an academic scholarship. You're not going to get like half the cost off. for academic scholarships, and only if you're a really top kid. So like, I think they have about 100 scholarships there that give you like 15,000 a year off tuition, and those are their very best ones. They're called the Bunt Rock scholarships. So it's a great school. I loved it, and it's just really expensive. And so if you can afford it, cool place to go. But there's some downsides. If you can't afford it, you might have to take a loan. So then after we add those up, say 130, that's about 240-ish. I'm using round numbers because, again, I don't want to do anybody's whole project for them. You'd tell me how much it costs for 4 years, for 4 years then. So $240,000. I know it's hard to relate to that much money, but just for perspective, a typical starting teacher makes about $30,000 per year. Okay, so if you were a teacher starting at $30,000 a year and you were going to try to pay for $240,000 of tuition for your kids, for instance, that'd be like paying your entire salary for 8 years and not spending your money on anything else for 8 years. Okay, but do starting teachers usually send their kids to college? No, usually older than that, usually making a little bit more than that, but still, there's no doubt that college has become very expensive. All right, so if you're talking about, let's say, $240,000, then we're going to make the assumption that you're going to have to pay half of college. Like mom and dad might pay half, but that maybe that's all they can afford to pay is half of whatever the bill is. And then the rest is going to fall on you. Okay, is that really true? Totally, this is one of those moments where life is not fair. Some of you will get, mom and dad will take care of the whole thing. Boom. Because maybe grandpa, who knows? Don't interrupt, please. Grandpa, made some smart investments a long time ago, and so there's like bazillions of dollars in the bank, and they can afford to pay the tuition. That's awesome. I think that's just you should realize how blessed you are when that happens. If mom and dad can write the whole bill. And in some of your cases, mom and dad literally can't help at all. Like they're just not going to be able to help you. You have to take care of college yourself. Okay, so there's a big range here where it depends on the person. Okay, but a lot of you are going to get some help from mom and dad. So we figured, how about half? So we'll say mom and dad take care of half of it. And you still want to go to St. Olaf or wherever, then you're going to have to take out some loans. And they'll sometimes give you a deal. Sometimes they'll give you some money off. Grants, they're called, but they don't give you like tons. They might give you a few $1,000, but they're not going to write you a check for 10 grand off of tuition just to be nice, unless you have financial needs. Sometimes they can write pretty big checks if they really want you. Like you're a really good singer and they really want you, and your family doesn't make much, then they might write out bigger checks to you to make it all possible. They're not really writing you a check, they're just saying the tuition is a lot less for you. So, all right, now we've got the 240 number. If we take half of that, that'd be 120. So now we've got a loan for $120,000. So let's talk about what that could really look like. Go back to the y equals screen. Now we're not going to use yearly because we're going to do monthly payments on a loan. So we got to go back to a 0 here. That's important to note. You can't start with the year and then try to do monthly payments. We can start with a 0 though. And now tuition is an increase of 6% per year, but interest on the college loans, that's more like 7%. Now, if you get lucky and you can get a government loan for some of it, sometimes the government loans are only like 4%. In the old days, in the dreamy old days, they were like 2%. But now it isn't that way anymore. The best you can get is like 5 or 6%. But we're using 7 because most kids could go out and get a loan for 7%. The special government loans are only certain people can get those, and that's not, so we don't want to use that imaginary number. 7's a more realistic number for your loan. And then how much do we have to take out in a loan? I'm going to say out of the 240 total, we're going to have a $120,000 loan. Now, I know that's a lot of money, and would anybody actually take out that much? Yes, unfortunately. A lot of people are coming out of college with these over 100,000 in loans nowadays. Not everybody. The average is about 29,000 in loans. That's average. So of course averages include a lot of people that had 0 in loans. So you know there's a lot of people with 50,000 in loans because there's a lot of zeros. And if the average is 25, then there must be a lot of 50,000 in loans. And so the extreme case is going to be like 100,000 in loans. And so one of my colleagues was just talking to a kid who was just going off to a Ivy League school and having to pay for the whole thing and can't afford to pay for the whole thing, so they're going to take out around 200,000 in loans to go to this Ivy League school. So that's, I mean, you're going to show you what their payments are going to be in a second. I think you'll understand better how hard that's going to be. Yes? Monthly payments. Monthly payments on the loan. So the loan is 100. The tuition gets paid. You can usually pay the tuition part in payments. Colleges are nice about that. They usually let you break up the 50 grand you got to write for St. Olaf. Some people write the check on the first day, $50,000. They're done. The other people will write it in installments. It is $50,000 per year to go to St. Olaf. Yes. Do you have to make that all in one payment? No. You can make that in smaller payments. But our assumptions here are that you're going to borrow half of that amount. Mom and dad are taking care of the other half. I'm worried about your half. Your half is going to be this loan for a total of $120,000 for the 4 years that you're there. Okay, so stay with me on this example here. Do you get that we owe 120 grand? Okay, and we're going to try to make monthly payments on that. So now I'm going to go back up here, and I have to put in the payment thing. Everybody do this with me on your calculator. $120,000 starting amount, and we're going to go up by 7% per year, but here's the important part. We're going to make payments. How much should the payments be? You aren't going to know. You're going to have to guess and check on this thing. I'm going to tell you that payments of around $1,200 a month, $1,200 would probably work on this case. Minus, because it's a loan, $1,200 per month. And I know those of you that are listening to this that are aware of how much money that is a ridiculously large student loan. And that's what I'm trying to point out is you don't want to do that. Colleges often make it really easy to borrow money because they want you to buy their stuff. They want you to come to their college and pay. And they'll make it really easy to borrow the money to get it. Sort of like a car dealer. Car dealers want you to buy their car. They're going to make it really easy to get a loan to buy the car because they want you to come there. So you can't just trust that the college is like really watching out for you. The college wants you to buy their thing. They want you to buy their school. So they're going to get you, here, no problem, it's going to be easy. Here's this loan guy. He's going to take care of all your loans. And the problem is you have to pay the loan back. All right, so let's go look at the table here, but make sure you go to table settings first, otherwise it's going to take you forever to get to 2013, and we don't even need that. Well, what do we need? Let's actually think about that. We don't even need to look at the beginning. If we do, it's just going to be the very beginning here where the loan amount's going down. It starts at 120. Wait a minute, how's my loans going up? What? Oh, I didn't have my divide by 12 in there? Thank you. Sorry about that. These are monthly payments, not yearly. Sorry, I got to insert after the 0.07. I need divide by 12 for monthly payments, and I bet some of you forgot that too. So I'm going to go inserting. Second insert is right above the delete key. Divide by 12. Okay, now I go look at the table, and I'm just going to do a quick check and make sure the loan amount's going down. Because a lot of times when people guess at their monthly payment, they guess too low, and then their amount is actually going up because they're not paying off enough to even pay for the interest. So my loan is going down, so I'm making big enough payments. Now I'm going to go look at the assumption we're making. This is all written out in a document on Schoology, but the assumption we're going to make is that you want to pay off the loan in 10 years. Does that sound reasonable? You're done with your loan in 10 years? Okay, so how many months would that be? 120 months. All right, so I'm going to get down to 120. I'm going to do that by going to table settings, changing it to 120. And now I'm going to go out, take a look at my table again. And is my loan paid off by then? I'll find out soon. If it's got a negative number, then it's already been paid off. So there we go. Rats. I still have $33,000 in loans left. So I wasn't making near big enough payments at $1,200 a month. Okay, so then that's where you'd play with it. And you have to change it to like $1,300 or $1,400 a month. And eventually you'll figure out that, oh my gosh, I have to pay like $1,500 a month or whatever it is. Has anybody, usually there's somebody that's played around with it. Has anybody found a number that's close? Okay. I'm going to just try. I have never done this exact example before. I'm going to change it to $1,500 a month. Let's see if that does it. Yep, it's way paid off. In fact, it was paid off a while ago. So let's say $1,400 a month is what you have to pay. And you have to play with that, find your exact number. Let's say it comes out to $1,400 per month payments. I get that you guys don't know how much that is. Like, is that a lot? Just for perspective, for a lot of people, that's the size of their house payment. Your house payment, this should be the biggest payment you have by far. Your house payment should be way more than like paying off a student loan kind of a thing. Okay? So this is the size of a lot of people's house payments or more. This is a really big amount. Here's one more way to say it. The government says that this should be no more than 8%. This should be 8% of your income. There's a little formula you might want to write down. Open your iPad up, write that one down. Your payment should be 8% of your income. That means we'll figure out how much your income should be. $1,400 should be 8% of your income. In other words, you should make way more than $1,400 per month. Right? Specifically, how do you solve this? This is an equation. 1,400, raise your hand if you have something to say. 1,400 equals 0.08 times I for income. So how do I get the I alone? Divide by what? Yep. And you asked a question, how long do you want to get your loan paid off? 10 years. You want the loan paid off in 10 years. So here's my number. This is all an imaginary example here, but they're kind of close numbers to the real thing. And somebody probably will research St. Olaf and you'll see. Okay, 1,400 divided by 0.08. What do you got? 17,000 what? 500. But remember, that's per month. It seems like, oh, that's easy. I can afford that. Even a teacher makes 30 grand. That's 17,000 a month that you need to be making in income to be able to afford $1,400 loan payments. And then we got to times it by 12. Somebody multiply that by 12 for me and see how much a year you'd need to make. Just wait, multiply it first. 210,000. Who's going to start at 210,000 right after your 4 years of college? Now, some of you might say, a doctor might. Well, first of all, doctors only make about 100 to start with, unless you're a specialist. Now, if you're a specialist and you're a doctor who has just like done your specialty, like you've now learned how to be a surgeon, okay, you might start at $200,000. But that's not going to be after 4 years of college. You're going to go 4 years of college plus med school, plus residency, plus all that stuff, okay? So 210 grand income is a lot of money. Now, some of your parents will be making that much, but you're not going to start making that much. Like right when you come out of college? That's really, really tough. All right. So I'll give you some specifics. An engineer will make around 60 starting, not 210. A teacher will make around 30 to 35 starting. Doctor will make around 100 starting. That's a normal family doctor that didn't get extra training. Maybe 120 for doctor. All right, and again, that's starting salaries. Ending salaries, sky's the limit for a lot of jobs. But when you start, and for the first few years, you don't raise you double your income in the first couple of years. It doesn't happen. You might get a 10% raise or something like that. Teachers typically get a between 2 and 5% raise each year, and then it kind of stops after a while, and then you only get like 2% raises. But anyway, so bottom line, you probably shouldn't take out a gigantic loan because there's no job I can think of that you could get that would make that much money. So how do you pay for college? You just can't afford to take out loans that are that big. I'll give you an example of how you could do it without taking out any loans at all. A lot of you, if instead of going to a place like this, you could go to a place like St. Cloud State. Instead of 50,000 total for St. Olaf, St. Cloud State would cost 15,000 total. And then maybe mom and dad might be able to afford to pay for half of your 15,000 is 7,000. And then maybe you could afford to pay for a couple 3,000 of it by working in the summer, and pretty soon you almost have no loans at all if you go to a cheap or college. Some of you have more help from mom and dad. You might have more options. Some of you guys might go in the military. My son, I'm very proud of him. He just got his letter from ROTC. He got a ROTC Scholarship, and he's going to use that at St. Thomas. And basically that's going to mean it's not going to cost him much money at all to go to school, because he's going to get it paid for by the Air Force. And then he has to go in the Air Force afterwards. But he wants to go in the Air Force anyways. Thinks of it as an adventure, and he's going to be able to get a good job right away after college for 4 years. So if he doesn't take that deal, it's going to be because he also is trying for the Air Force Academy. And some of you guys could qualify for that. It takes some serious hard work, but the Air Force Academy is completely 100% paid. The government takes care of all of it, because you're training their best officers for the Air Force, for instance. Or there's, have you guys heard of West Point? West Point's another place that's like the Air Force Academy. Again, if you're in good shape, physical shape, and you're a top student, you got a shot. But it's hard to get into, so it's not like a guarantee. What you could pretty much guarantee yourself is if you go to an inexpensive school, you can make it work. Cheapest one any kid has ever researched is probably Normandale. The cool part about Normandale is you stay at home, and it saves you the room and board part. All you have to pay is tuition. And tuition at Normandale is about $7,000 a year. Now, one of the deals that they have too at Normandale is you can go for $7,000 a year for the first 2 years, and then they have a guaranteed transfer program to the University of Minnesota. So as soon as you're done with your 2 years, you're going to be for sure in at the University of Minnesota, and you can finish your last 2 years there. And if you're embarrassed about, like Normandale, oh my gosh, that's not nearly as good as St. Olaf or wherever, when somebody asks you later where you went to college, you're probably not going to say Normandale. You're probably going to say, I graduated from the U. You probably don't even ever mention your first couple of years, because it doesn't matter much. It's where you graduated from, right? So there are ways to make this work that save some of this money on college. So anyway, I've showed you a whole project from start to finish, showing you how much the college costs to start with, figuring out how much it would cost for you to go there for 4 years. Then we're assuming you borrow half of it. And then after you borrow half of it, we figure out how much payments you have to make to pay that off in 10 years. And then once you did that, you get to this part, probably the hardest part that kids have is figuring out what 8% is. It's really not that hard. Just divide the number by 0.08. But don't forget that you just found the monthly salary. Times that by 12 gives you the yearly salary. And it'll usually be a shocker of, oh my gosh, I could never afford that. And that just means don't take out that many loans. If the college's proposal to you is, okay, how about this? Your parents pay 20 and you take out a loan for 20 each year. I just want you to be able to look at the math on it and see what would your payments be. Okay? So some colleges you probably could make it happen for very reasonable, like you could very definitely get a job that could afford it. And others of you will realize, I cannot afford to go to the really expensive place because I'm one of those kids that probably have to take that giant loan. And then I want you to know that, because I hate hearing stories about kids that come back with $100,000 in loans and they are working at Starbucks or something and they can't even make their loan payments. And they're living at home and they're going to be stuck that way for 10 years. A lot of people say, can't you just declare bankruptcy? Nope. College loans won't even go away if you declare bankruptcy. You still have to pay your college loan. Like the bankruptcy judge will not wipe them out. Okay? Unless there's some really weird circumstances or whatever. But college loans are not something you can get erased in bankruptcy. So it's something you're stuck with for a long time. So I encourage you, if you're going to take out loans, be one of the kids that only takes out 10 or 20 or 30, maybe even 40 grand of loans, because that's probably something you could handle, even though the higher the number is, the more you'll hate it later. But national average, 25,000 in loans. Yes. Slow question. Yes. Go ahead. You can do any school you want. If your dream school, I do want you to understand this. If your dream school is like St. Thomas, sometimes it works out. Sometimes they'll give you a scholarship, and it won't be as near as expensive as you thought it was going to be, because they'll, like, again, I'm picking on my son a lot here, but I know that he's okay with me letting people know. He got a big scholarship offer from St. Thomas just based on academics. Like, you could get that. My son isn't like a genius or anything. He got a good ACT, but not an amazing one. He got good grades, but not amazing grades. And they offered him $19,000 a year off his tuition. Okay, he's a good candidate. He has good leadership skills and that kind of stuff too. But you could get that. You're in your freshman year. You have time. You could make this happen. So they offer way more than normal in scholarships. A lot of places, your scholarship is like $2,000. So don't just say, oh, I'll just get scholarships. My wife was a valedictorian, #1 in her high school. And she got a total of $1,000 off of her tuition. That's it. We met at St. Okay, so $1,000 once. Not. It was actually $250 per year. So that's valedictorian. So it's not like if I'm really good, they'll just let me go in for free. Nope, not in the real world. There are some colleges that want students that bad. Like, I remember when I was looking at colleges, somebody offered me 50% off tuition. That was kind of cool. I think it was Augsburg. Offered me 50% off if I would go there because I was a top student at the school that I was at. I wasn't the #1 guy, but I was in the top 15 or something like that. And so they offered me half price. Well, that helps a lot. Yes, absolutely. Some kids are going to actually get college scholarships based on sports, but it is really tough. And usually by now, you'd know if you were that good. You know what I mean? There are some kids that are good enough and have a chance. And there's other people that like gamble everything on that, and then like the senior year, they blow out their knee. Poof, all of a sudden their college scholarships are gone. And now they got to rely on their academics, which maybe they weren't trying that hard because they thought they were going to be a football player or whatever. So they don't want to depend on the sports scholarships just because injuries can happen. Okay, talked about this enough. What are you doing for the next half hour? Your job in class is to pick a school you're interested in. You may want to get in a group, because I will allow groups of, in extreme cases, up to 5 even in a group. I had one last hour where it was just a lot more logical to make it a group of 5 instead of 2 groups. But you can work alone if you want to. Like, if you really want to research, there is a college in, for instance, Arkansas that offers tuition. If you're willing to work at their school, their tuition can be as low as like $2,000 per year for a 4-year degree. You really want to go to that college? Well, look up that college. Try to find it. But if you really have a dream school, like I want to go for Harvard or whatever, look it up. Cool. Do it. And when it's all done, you're going to make a project. I'm going to show you an example of my project. And the project needs to include the price tag. And the price tag we want 3 ways. #1, how much total does it cost for 4 years for you? Like, so when you start, and then the increases in tuition over time. So your price for 4 years, your loan amount you would need if you paid half of it in loans, and the last thing is how much income you would need to support that loan. Those 3 things have to be in your project. But here's an example of one, and I'm going to stop the video here. And anybody else that's watching this at home, there are 2 documents on Schoology posted. One says all the rules that I just said verbally. It doesn't show you how to do each little thing like I did here, but it shows you all the rules. And the other sheet is a worksheet, and that's the homework for today, is this worksheet, which you have to find the tuition room and board for your college, and then figure out for yourself what all these numbers would be. That's what's due tomorrow.